I had a life. But my life changed dramatically because I was so naive to the system. I still believe in the justice system. I believe all I had to do was tell the truth. I repeated the same story that I told the police 7 months earlier, the night of my arrest, to no avail. I said, give me a polygraph test. Give me truth serum. They told me that was self-serving. I asked for a speedy trial and I got it. I had an expert DUI lawyer that represented me in this capital case. That's how naive I was to the system. My family scraped together $35,000, $38,000, which is a lot of money. He said that this is the best case he ever had. A week after he got his retainer, he went out and bought him a new Buick. He come to see me in jail twice. Took 2 phone calls from me. But I still believe in the system. I believe all I had to do is get on that witness stand and tell the truth, and the jury will believe me. The evidence they used against me and Herb Whitlock was a town drunk and a mentally ill woman who both had charges pending on them. After a $25,000 reward had been circulated in every bar in town, they come up with a town drunk and a mentally ill alcoholic woman. I went to trial in 97 days. I got convicted in 9 days. Debbie Reinbold and Darrell Harrington both took the stand and pointed their finger at me. Said, that's Randy Steidl, he's the one that did it, I saw him do it. Same thing with Herb Whitlock. But you know, how do you defend yourself when somebody points at you like that? And you got 12 people that's judging you or looking at you. It's like sitting on a bed of hot coals and you can't yell out. When somebody puts their hand on a Bible, swears to tell the truth, and gets up and lies. And I took the stand, spent 2 hours on the stand, combating with the prosecutor, didn't lose my cool, looked at the jury. Every time a question was asked by the prosecutor, I looked at the jury and answered, just like my attorney told me to do. When you have a woman sitting in the middle of the jury box, as soon as I answered, she turned her head, wouldn't even look at me. This was about 10 minutes into my testimony. I can't begin to tell you that the bottom of your stomach falls out when you got a juror sitting there and won't even look at you. 5 days later, the state rested, the defense rested. I watched the jury walk out. I still felt good. I felt like I'm innocent. They're going to see I'm innocent. Sat in the holding cage for 6.5 hours. Finally, I get a call, hey, the verdict's in. I'm still upbeat. Walk into the courthouse. I sat down. I watched the jury walk in, and they weren't looking anywhere but the tops of their feet. They wouldn't look at me, they wouldn't look at the prosecutor, and I knew right then and there I was going to be found guilty. But I still had hope. And they handed that verdict form to the bailiff, and the bailiff handed it to the judge, and then back to the bailiff. Felt like an eternity. I had 9 family members sitting behind me, my mother, my aunt, my cousins, my brother. And when that jury read that verdict guilty, I looked at my attorney and I didn't believe I even heard that. I believe it. I didn't hear that. In stunned silence for about, seemed like a minute, until I heard my mother wailing behind me. I'll never will forget the sound of that wail. And I looked to my right, and the prosecutor and the lead investigators doing high fives like they just kicked the winning field goal. Then I realized I'm no longer naive to the system. There was no physical evidence or forensic evidence tying me to this crime. I had a corroborated alibi. Yet both these alleged eyewitnesses have told repeated stories, different stories. Every time the police contacted them, they told a different story. The town drunk first said it was a Jim and Ed that did it. That statement got buried for years. One of the Paris detectives threatened and intimidated a barmaid. Went like that. I'll show you the pictures of the murdered victims if you don't say he was in this bar at this certain time on a certain day. A pregnant woman was pushed against the wall by this same Paris police officer. 8 months pregnant. She thought her water broke, but she'd actually peed her pants. Proper police procedure. So all this was unknown to me at the time. Neither of these eyewitnesses could be corroborated in any of their statements, so they used people on the peripheral to make them credible. But again, what's a jury to believe? Two people that said they watched two young people being butchered. They took an oath to tell the truth. They pointed me out. No physical evidence tying me to the crime. They had corroborated alibi. I stuck by my story from A to Z. The next day, they brought me into the courtroom for the sentencing phase. By that time, I had pretty much resigned myself that my life was over. It was like somebody just turned a light switch out on my life. I didn't care whether they gave me the death penalty or not. Jury was out 5 minutes, come back with the death penalty. Again, I hear my mother wailing in the back. So off the death row I go. I got to tell you, I thought I was pretty hard-headed country boy when I went into prison. I never went to prison before, never spent time in jail. But I got to tell you, when you walk in on death row back in the 1980s, that was a very, very sobering day for me. Because I realized right then and there, you can't sink much lower than this. There's only one way up out of here, and that's up. I was locked up. I was breathing the same air with vicious killers. A lot of them pretty popular. John Wayne Gacy. Knowing these people had no problem killing me. But what I also didn't understand at the time, that there were 19 other innocent men locked up with me, walking the gallery with me, walking the yard, playing basketball, lifting weights with me. Because see, when you're on death row, you don't talk about your case, you don't tell somebody you're innocent, because everybody's innocent on death row. They'll all tell you that. But I still had a little bit of belief in the system, because you go through direct appeal. I'm thinking, this Illinois Supreme Court's going to see where this prosecutor fabricated this case. All the inconsistent statements, all the different lies they've told. Worked for 4 years before I could get my appeal heard, because Debbie Reinhold and Darrell Harrington, the town drunk and the mentally ill woman, had both recanted their trial testimony. All this time I'm in the law library trying to learn something about the law, ineffective assistance of counsel, and I got seasoned convicts coming by the cell going, "What are you doing? Come on out, lift weights." I said, "You don't understand, I'm innocent, I'm gonna get out of here." They said, "Nobody wins direct appeal, Randy, nobody. This is Illinois." I said, "No, you don't understand, I'm innocent. These two witnesses have just recanted." They say, "Good luck." So I spent about the first 2 years in the law library trying to learn about ineffective assistance of counsel, recantations. Somebody that's very naive to the law, trying to educate myself, because after this worthless attorney that I had for a trial attorney, I really gave my new attorneys a hard time, because they would tell me something and I'd say, "Show me." I just didn't trust what they said. But before I could get an evidentiary hearing and put the two witnesses on the stand who allegedly saw this double murder, they recanted the recantation. A different trial judge said, "Thank you very much, have a nice day," and sent me back to death row. But I consolidated that with my direct appeal, and I'm thinking this Illinois Supreme Court is going to see where these people are not credible and I'm innocent. 4.5 years later, after the oral arguments, I get the opinion back, denied, and they give me my first fake date, execution date, saying the witnesses were believable. The trial judge was in a better position in this court to determine the veracity of the witnesses. So that's when I started being very jaded towards the system. But that was just my first direct appeal. I had 5 more attempts through the state court. Every time, denied, denied. No physical evidence tying to any crime. I had a corroborated alibi. They used a jailhouse snitch, an alcoholic, and a mentally ill woman to put me on death row. And I still don't believe it. I don't believe that appellate prosecutors, assistant Illinois attorney generals, every time I had a different appeal, they would assign new appellate prosecutors and Illinois attorney generals for this little bit of work. And they come in there and they do their thing. With no conscience to the truth, didn't care anything about justice. It was to uphold a wrongful conviction. That's Illinois for you. The end justifies the means. As I said, I grew up in America where I believe you tell the truth. If you make a mistake, you correct that mistake and you go on. Nobody holds that against you. The justice system in Illinois has been broken long before this abolition of the death penalty. All they have now is a passive death sentence. But they have the same system in place that put me on death row and 19 others. It's the system. And even worse, it's some of the people that work within the system. It's about power, money, influence, and corruption in this state. Anybody that doesn't believe that can just look at the last 2 governors, right?